What's up, small business owners? Welcome to our workshop on AI-powered blogging, a blueprint for small business. Today, we're going to be talking about blogging and how to do it with AI. It's going to be a lot of information, so we're just going to run through this as quickly as possible so we can get to all the demo stuff that we're going to be doing. In this workshop, we're going to be talking about using AI-powered blogging and creating a blueprint and a workflow. We're going to be talking about not just writing a blog, but also using AI to build your visibility online. And blogging is a powerful tool to do that, but it's also part of a larger strategic plan and picture. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But really, it's just about getting customers. And then we're going to be using AI. So a lot of people think AI is going to be some kind of magic bullet or a button you just press. We're not going to be thinking of it that way. AI is great, but we need to think of it as more of a co-pilot that is going to help you through all of the repetitive, time-consuming tasks like brainstorming, research, compiling all that stuff together, and actually creating your drafts. So you can focus more on putting your voice into it, branding, and actually getting more customers through that human connection in your writing. And then finally, the goal after the entire workshop is to have an end-to-end workflow. We're going to make sure everything is clear and repeatable so that you can have a blueprint to create content as easy as, well, that. I usually create blog posts in about an hour, so hopefully we'll be able to do all that together. And really, it's just going to be driving business through your blog posts, optimizing on Google, and getting found. So you can go to think about it as, I'm not just writing another blog post or I need to write another blog post. It's also about, I have a plan about how to get found online and get more customers. So the whole process gets to be faster and more strategic and hopefully less stressful on your end. But before we begin, my name's Josh from the University of Laverne Small Business Development Center. And here at the SBDC, we help small businesses start and grow with free one-on-one consulting and free resources and workshops just like this one. If at the end of this entire workshop you have some questions, I'll let you know how you can get your questions answered and hopefully work with somebody one-on-one. This particular topic is something I actually like. This is my area of expertise. I actually have been doing blogging for the SBDC for about 5 years and through AI since it came out. And I kind of like to think of myself as a power user for AI. So we'll see how that works out and how much you can get out of this workshop when it comes to AI blogging. But before we dive in on the how of AI blogging, we need to talk about the why. And the biggest question is, why should you care about, as a small business, spend time on blogging in the first place? Because blogging is part of a larger strategy called content marketing. And content marketing really helps you with bringing in customers. Well, how does it do that? Well, it really boils down to 3 things. Content marketing helps you establish authority. So if you've ever noticed how people keep popping up every time you search for specific topics or on specific information, they just seem to come up and that person is always writing about it. That's not by accident. When you consistently publish helpful articles, you're building trust with your audience. And so you're providing and proving you're an expert in your field. And this is how the small business owner can compete with larger brands. And by showing your unique and valuable insights that only you can give as a small business owner. The next thing is you're going to be able to attract new customers. And this is really where the magic happens. And this is really what content marketing is about. It's not about putting out advertising and things like that. It's also known as inbound marketing, where you're bringing in customers and giving them the information that they need when they're searching for their problems, whether it be on Google or on YouTube. Every time you write content that answers a question, you're becoming the solution to somebody's problem. And that's what people are looking for. And just like that, you're attracting new potential customers into your business. And then the final thing is going to be, you're going to be able to build a community. Blogging and content marketing aren't just a one-way street like a billboard where you're just putting it out there. Again, it's more inbound. So every time you publish a great piece, you're also inviting a conversation. This is a chance for building a loyal community. And also, every time they comment or ask other questions, you're not just gaining readers and gaining people looking at the blog, but you're also gaining more loyal followers and actual customers when they start trusting you and your brand. So enough about content marketing. Let's get into the how. And the first phase is going to be research. Now, you're probably thinking research, what do I have to research? What am I doing? This is just going to be figuring out what your customers actually want. And so we need to find out what the audience's questions are. And one of the biggest things is that we're not just writing things just to write things. We need to figure out what questions that they have and what specific questions do they have. So the first step is we're going to use our AI-powered workflow is to figure out the research. And we're going to go from a broad kind of topic, something like marketing or small business, is a little too big. We need to niche down into more kind of tighter questions about what the customer is actually looking for. So instead of broad topics like small business, for us, we can talk about, how to start a particular type of business, or how to file a particular kind of license, or how do I get a loan? Those are going to be more niched down, called long tail keywords. And those will bring into clusters and so on and so forth. And what that really means is that it's just a fancy way of saying we're going to bring in a lot of keywords that people are looking for and how to organize them into specific topics and sections. And that really comes to the content pillar concept. And what this is that instead of creating single topics and articles, we're coming up with bigger topics, bigger areas. Like for us specifically, instead of, small business topics, we're talking about starting a business or managing a business or marketing a business or financing for your business. We have those kinds of buckets for each of the services or the areas that we actually talk about. And so what we really need to do is come up with some articles that fit in each of those buckets, and then we rotate those things around to make an overall strategy and put all those things together so that people can actually find those topics. But then also it tells Google that you're an expert in not just one article or one topic, you're an expert in multiple topics. And that gives you a higher ranking online and builds your presence online. And so what we're going to do is we're going to basically first create a toolkit. And what we're going to do is we're going to put together a list of valuable keywords, and then we're going to put all those things together. And this is basically a tool that creates your content pillars or clusters and your keywords. So for example, if you're a bakery, you're not just talking about, how to make baked goods, but you're talking about, how to make sourdough starter or how to bake gluten-free bread at home, because gluten-free bread is going to be different than regular flour, and those things may not rise or taste the way that gluten bread does. And so you have to figure out what they're looking for and then also put those things together. So let's do that right now. So we have our blog content workflow. This you will get at the end of the workshop. You'll get this in an email, so you'll be able to, look at it, use it, and fine-tune it for what you need. But what we'll do, so we'll basically copy all this. And then let's go to ChatGPT, and then let's start a new chat. And so what this is that we are going to create some clusters based on a keyword. And what keyword do we want to use? Let's actually do, what is it? Small business. So here is our topic. Let's do small business. And we're really just talking to ChatGPT like we would anything else. So it's working. Here we go. And really, it's just going to come up with some small business ideas. These are the actual, not articles, these are the long tail keywords, and then these are the article ideas for each one. And then here's the actual clusters and the pillars that we're going to be creating. So managing finance and operations, starting and funding your small business. We've actually done a lot of these on our blog that I'll show you a little bit later. But these are the content pillars and the actual article ideas that we can use. So that's really great. So once we have all that together, let's actually gather some resources. So let's say we pick an idea. In this case, one of the ideas that I was going to demo was going to be SEO for small business. And so how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is come up with the right information. And so good content is built on a strong foundation and quality information. And AI is going to help us do that. We're going to choose our keywords, and then we're going to use that to find the information that we need. But when finding the information, we need to also ask the right questions. Just coming up with information about SEO for small business is fine, but what other things do they really need to know? So you actually need to put on your customer hat, and you need to understand, well, what things are they really looking for? How do I really answer their questions? And so we need to put those right questions in and start building those blocks so that we can actually use them for our blog. And the final thing is we need to go beyond the text. Sometimes blogs are fine, but there may be better information, say on YouTube or somewhere else. So you want to have all those well-rounded sources using our tools so that we can find the most information. We don't want to just bias specific blogs. We want to be able to use all the information available to us to put all that together. So let's do that. The particular tool that I'm going to be using is going to be called Perplexity. And so with Perplexity, we're going to put together, let's go demo here. And so Perplexity is going to be our tool of choice. And what Perplexity does is that it's basically like a search engine. You find the information, it grabs the sources for you, which is really, really important. And then we're going to be able to put all that together. Small business. Let's see. Oh, I guess we don't need to do, we'll just do a new search. So let's just do SEO for small business websites. And so what it does is it gives us all the information that we need about small business websites and how SEO works. Now, there's a bunch of information that I want to also find. What are some, let's say, best practices? Oops, practices for small business SEO. And then I could also ask follow-up questions and other things that I need. And then the other question I wanted to ask was, if somebody were to, say, implement some of this this SEO stuff, how long does it take to work? And when would I see actual results? So, how long do SEO changes take for small business websites to work? And because I don't have the pro plan, and you don't necessarily need the pro plan, you're going to get so many in-depth searches, which is fine because we're not really using a lot of the horsepower that Perplexity can provide. We're just using very simple tools to get the information that we need. And so, yeah, so it says, after implementing 6 to 12 months, that might be something that for SEO, because a lot of people are like, well, I've changed my website and it's not working. Well, you need to give it some time. So that should be it. So we've gathered all the sources, or we have all the information that we need. Let's start building the blocks. The first thing we need to understand about putting together the blog post is we need to understand something called a content frame. And the content frame concept is not something that's new. It's actually another marketer, Jason Whaling, talks about this when it comes to blogging and his content marketing. And so I'm able to kind of move that stuff over into what we need it for when it comes to blogging for the SBDC, and then also for small businesses. One of the big things you need to start with is going to be the big question. That's the overarching question, and that's really the key word that you're starting out with. How to start a business, how to file a seller's permit, how do I get a bank loan? All of those things, those are the big questions. And using all of that information that we'll gather from Perplexity, the tool that we're going to be using will be able to suss all that stuff out, so we can get a better idea of what people are actually searching for. So yeah, one of the examples that I have here is, how to start a podcast. Now, it's not necessarily how to start a podcast in just the overarching sense, but how do I start something that I can, share my passion, or how do I start it on a budget? So those are the other questions that we need to kind of talk about or think about when it comes to putting all this stuff together. The next thing is going to be the big result. So we have a question, that's point A, and now we need to get to point B, the big result. What do people want? If they're going to be reading your blog post or reading any of your content, what is the final thing that they want to be able to walk away with? And this is going to be the compelling outcome, something you're going to be promising the reader. What value will they gain? Will they know how to do something? Will they be able to do something cheaply? Will they be able to, is there a hack of how to do something? And it doesn't necessarily always need to be how to do something. It could be a decision between product A and product B, or, which way should I go? Or, is this product that I'm looking at, is this right for me? And so there's a bunch of different ways to think about it, but at its basic, we need to go, here's the big question, what is the big result or the big answer that I need to convey to the reader? And then the last thing is going to be the roadblocks and aha moments. Now, like I said, this is going to be point A to point B, but this is not necessarily a straight line. This may be kind of a journey. And so it's not just giving them a lot of information of like, oh yeah, you pick a niche for your podcast, or you gather all the equipment and you come to a script. Okay, those are the basic things, but that doesn't really tell me anything. How do I pick the niche? What kind of equipment do I need to grab? What if I'm on a budget? how do I put together a script? What are some things that I need to know? And so all of those little things that may have the reader come up with more questions than you have answers to, then those are what are called roadblocks. And so those roadblocks are what might stop somebody from actually achieving whatever the result is. But you need to be able to explain those things so they don't walk away having more questions than they do answers at the end of your blog post. And so that's what we try to do. We try to make it as easy as possible, step by step, try to answer as many questions as possible. Sometimes our readers will have way more questions and way out in the weeds type of things where they would need to sit down with somebody for their specific situation. But for the most part, we're trying to get about the 80, 90% of people who have those questions, how to get those answers. Alrighty, so now we're going to get to creating the outline. And so instead of we're manually sifting through all the information that we gathered from Perplexity, where do we put it? How do we sift through it? How do we get the information that we need to put it into an outline that we can use? And so really, we're going to use a tool called NotebookLM, and I already have an example for you from the SEO blog post that I've already created, and I'll show you my pathway and how I put all that stuff together. But we're going to use NotebookLM, and really we're going to understand what the information and the market was already saying based on all of those blog posts and all of that information that I already gathered, and try to make it better or try to come up with a new angle that people would be interested in that answers more questions than people have in the other content. And so this part of it actually conquers writer's block, because what that means is that your AI is helping you create this outline. And once we have those core insights, then we can start building on those things, and the tools will help us put all those things together and make it an easier way to make a draft. And then finally, again, it's going to give us the full structure. The way I've created a lot of these templates and prompts is we have not only the prompt itself, but it also formats it for you in a way that makes it easier to do the SEO stuff later on down the line. So things like headings, subheadings, key points, creating a logical flow. A lot of those things are going to be baked into the outline. And then you could also expand on it, put in some focuses, and do a lot of the other stuff to make it better. So let's do that right now. Let's go into NotebookLM. And here is my already created project file. Now, if you're worried about, oh, well, how do I use NotebookLM and do all this stuff? You just open up one and you start a notebook. And in fact, let's go to notebook here. So we can go to create a notebook. I already have one set up. And it's going to come out to this. So all of this stuff will be blank when you first start. If you want to add some sources, we can go here and we can put in our URLs. If we have the URLs from the information that we got, we can just copy and paste those. And then we can also go like YouTube videos. I've added some YouTube videos, and you can put in the YouTube URLs as well. Or if you download that stuff and put it into PDFs, you can always drag and drop PDFs here. So it's really easy to add sources, but now we actually need to start manipulating them. So based on all these sources, what we'll do is we'll go back to the workflow, and I have an initial research here. That's tips to help you search for things. But right here, we're going to go to compiling research. And the first thing we need to do is we need to analyze our sources. So we'll grab this prompt here. And it's basically going to list out and identify all the key points and things about SEO for small business, or all the actual sources that I have. So it's going to think a little bit, and here we go. So that took about 5 seconds. And one of the things is going to be keyword strategy, on-page SEO, so the actual formatting of a website, technical foundation, so things about page speed, responsiveness, a lot of these things that you may not know about. But we're going to break all this stuff down and we're going to figure out how to make it easier for people to understand. Next step is we're going to determine the search intent. So originally I kind of figured out, it's like, oh, well, what do people want to build a website or improve their website? What are they actually searching for? And so what are the primary questions or problems that I can address to make my blog post a little bit better? So defining SEO, that was a big one because a lot of these terms that people may not understand. And then also immediate results. People will say, well, I started this stuff, but it's not working. It's not working in enough time that I need, or I didn't know how long it was going to take to actually start working. That's where you have to answer that question. And then knowing where to start. And so some of these things are going to be like, what do I start with? Well, you can start with structure. You can start with, formatting things. And so those are the recommendations that NotebookLM came up with based on all the sources that I came up with. And so then we're also going to put in the big result. So what are people going to get out of this after we're done? So it's going to be thinking a little bit. But basically, now that I have those questions, how do I explain it in a way that gets people, that explains it for people? And so right here, primary questions, achieve measurable visibility and growth. Yeah, how do I measure what I'm doing and what does that look like? Creating a plan and how to do it non-technically. So a lot of these people who are small business owners, they don't know all of this technical stuff, and they might have to pay a pretty penny for it. But if they know that they can do it themselves, that's more valuable to somebody as a small business owner than it is for, somebody who is, selling websites or something like that, because they can make money off of it. But the people who really need the information can now be empowered to do it themselves. And then finally, what can make this content stand out? And it gives me a bunch of things on how to make this better than the sources that we come from. Finally, there's some gaps in the content that we can identify, so we'll do that. And we can see, hey, what are the things that we can talk about that are not in this content that can make ours better? So it gives us a bunch of things. So, under misunderstandings, we got roadblocks, what SEO looks like, how it works. It also gives us an analogy of like a garden and how that works. And so we can use these things or we can throw these things out. We don't have to use everything that NotebookLM will give us. And that's really what a lot of people who use AI was like, well, I just have to deal with what it's given. It's like, no, you don't have to. You can always change things and you can always refine things and make it better. And then finally, now that we've identified all that stuff, we can create the specific outline. And so let's go to making the outline and let's see what it actually gives us. And so it's going to give us a lot of things to look at. So it gives us kind of like a little introduction, the website problem, how to think of SEO, not just necessarily a quick fix, but actually you have to cultivate it just like a garden. The analogy is okay, but we'll deal with that a little bit later. Speaking your customer's language, keywords, relevant terms, making things easier to understand, and then actually implementing all the optimizations. Good. Okay, that's the interesting stuff that we need to know. So let's go back to our slides, because now we've already created an outline. You probably didn't even realize it. We're already halfway through what we need to do as far as creating the blog post. So let's actually write the article. Now remember, we're going to be using AI as our co-pilot. We have this detailed outline from the last step. We're going to generate a full-length first draft. And this is going to be done in a fraction of the time. So we already have the outline, we already have the information that we need. How do we take that and put it into an actual article? Well, we're going to be using ChatGPT for that because it's really good for creating content. We already have our outline, and I'm going to show you the finished outline and the prompt that I used and what the final result was from ChatGPT. I already have all this stuff. I keep all of it, so we don't really have to waste time on it thinking. But the next thing we need to understand is we need to not only just use AI as the co-pilot, we need to also remember we need to set the tone. Now, we need to understand when we're prompting, if you're going to be doing this from scratch, you need to understand you have to give it a specific tone. With us, our tone is informational, helpful, authoritative, but helpful is a really good one because we're trying to be like if I were talking to you, standing in front of you, not just talking at you and, being on, my soapbox. We're trying to make things helpful for people who are looking at it so that they trust us and they actually are, they actually think of us as a colleague or a helpful friend giving some good advice. And so the content not only comes off as accurate, but also aligned with our, our brand voice, how we actually talk and how people want us, how people are going to perceive us. And then again, with the writing is going to be the SEO part. And I'll show you what the prompt looks like because it also bakes in a lot of the formatting. Like I said, subheadings, headings, the keywords, a lot of those things are going to be baked into the draft. And so we need to have those things set up so that it's not doing more work on the back end. And it's also going to be good on once we have the final draft, that Google will recognize that and place it in the search rankings so that we can get visibility and rank high on search. So let's go back to the demo. And so we're going to leave NotebookLM for now, and we're going to go to ChatGPT. So we've already used 3 specific AI programs. We use Perplexity for finding information. We use NotebookLM for compiling the information. And now we're going to use ChatGPT to put it all together and start crafting it for us. So let's see. Here we go. So this was the information that I started out with. This is the actual prompt and information here for the outline. Let's put that aside for a second and let's go back to the workflow because here is the actual prompt that we're going to be using. Like I said, you'll get this, so don't worry about writing this stuff down or, paying attention too much about what the prompts say because you will get this. But for now, we're going to be prompting, and I've written this out. We're going to be creating a full blog post with a tone of voice. And so what this really is that I'm telling ChatGPT how I want it to write. And so we're going to say our audience is searching for answers. They need clear, engaging, SEO-optimized content that ranks well on Google. That's the goal. Now, the objective is that we need to create an informative, educational blog or engaging blog post based on a specific keyword. So that could be SEO for small business websites. That's what we started out with way back in the, so we have to understand how this workflow is going to work. And then we have the formatting stuff. So primary keywords, SEO for small business websites, where it's going to put them. So in the first 100 words, and break it out by headings. And we already have those headings in NotebookLM. It already created this stuff for us when we made the outline. So a lot of its work is already done. So let's go back to the workflow. And so the writing style, here's where you can get a little bit more creative depending on your business, depending on your actual industry and you as a business owner. So the hook is going to be asking a question, a surprising fact, a relatable problem, and then you're going to be talking to the reader, not just in third person or just informative like a news article. You're going to be talking to the person as if you were writing to this person in a letter. We're going to weave in some storytelling. We're going to have some descriptions and persuasive language to keep the readers engaged. And that's pretty much it. What we might do is it might disrupt the flow and break some grammar rules. We'll do that a little bit later so it sounds more human, but that's basically what we're going to do is we'll just look at what the output that they gave us when I first did this, and then we can kind of talk about where we're at. So let's go to ChatGPT. And so that's what I did. I put in all this information. You'll see it has the different outlines, the headings, all of this stuff. And so what it did is it created the blog post for me already. And so the other thing that I did was also put in the, actually, let's do a new chat and we'll show this in real time. So this, copy, paste, and then we'll grab our here, the SEO outline. That's what I wanted. I already created the outline for all of this. Do Control A, copy, and paste, and done. Okay, so ChatGPT was already writing it for me. So you can see all this information here. It already has the headings. It already gives me the keywords and all the other stuff that I need. Let me do this. Let me do it with the key quick. Edit message. SEO for small business. SEO for small business websites. There we go. Keep messing that up. Yeah, correct it for me. Thank you, Grammarly. So we put in the keyword. We wanted to make sure that the keyword was going to be in here because Google is always looking for keywords, and Google is still bent on keywords. So we want to make sure that we're not just stuffing the keywords like they used to with marketers. We want to be able to weave them in naturally, and this is where a lot of this AI stuff can come in because it does it for you. So we have all of this stuff here, and it basically makes the actual blog post for me. This is the first draft, and it still keeps on going. Still going. That took, what, 30 seconds? A minute to write all of this stuff for me? So that's good. So we have our first draft. Now let's get back to our workflow. So we have the first draft, we have it done. We don't want to push publish just yet. AI is fantastic when it comes to writing stuff like this, especially ChatGPT, but really it's just the first draft. It might be a little stilted and maybe a little AI sounding, very robotic. The prompts are really good the way I've developed them, but they still need a little bit of work. And so this is where the copywriting comes from, or what they call humanizing. We want to go beyond the robot. We want to make it uniquely you. And so how we want to do that is we want to weave in your voice and the way you speak as a person. And I have some prompts for that. Really, what this means is that we need to, we can weave in personal stories. You can have different perspectives and add those things to the actual draft. So what we can do is, if we go back to the demo here, I can really just copy this and we can put it into a new Google Doc or a Word doc or whatever, and then start adding in those examples so that we can have something to build off of when we actually do the copywriting part of it. But for now, we're just going to use this. I did add some other things, but I'll show you the actual final draft once we get there. But for now, we're really just going to think about, oh, we need to weave in, personal stories, examples, and other things that may make it more you as a business owner, a blogger, anything else. We can weave in customer success, personal learning, teachable moments, challenges you overcame. All of these things make it more human. And then the last thing is we can ask questions. And so this is where we kind of break some rules in grammar, where we're asking mid-article questions or something like rhetorical questions. So I actually learned this a lot when I read the Bible, and there are specific authors that will put in some rhetorical questions to make a point. And I thought that that was really good, and I wanted to know, well, how does that actually work? So I did a lot of research and figured out how you can put those in, and I added those rhetorical kind of specific prompts and rhetorical devices to make a point when it comes to the writing to make it more impactful. So I'll show you what that actually looks like. But things like, does that sound familiar after, asking a question that everybody has a problem to? Have you ever felt that way if you want to get a little bit more emotional connection when something goes wrong, or, anything else really? And this is where you can make the connection and where people feel more invested in the reading and in the actual problem that you're going to solve. So that becomes a little bit more personal to them. So let's go back to the prompts, and then we'll take a look at how to humanize things. So let's go to our prompts here. And so prompt number 7 is going to be humanizing content. And so, like I said, AI might seem a little stiff or wordy and may give you more things or more words than you have to deal with. You don't want it to be too long. I was actually talking to Sean a little while ago about a blog post that he's working on leases, and it's really, really long. And we can use some humanizing prompts to cut it down and to make it more understandable and easier to read. And so we do have a couple of prompts that we can work with. So there's a general purpose one that talks about your audience is frustrated. And this is more of a general copywriting thing, maybe for sales on a website and things like that. If you want to use it, fine. But I've also used AI to adapt to different situations. And that's what's good about this. So if you're making a blog, like a more professional blog, something on LinkedIn, you may want to start out with the audiences facing a specific challenge, and you want to guide them towards a different solution. Or a sales one where they're stuck and frustrated and they need a way out. They need an actual solution that will help them. It can be a little bit more educational, which is the one I tend to use between that one and the blogging one. I like to bounce between each one depending on which one gives me the best output. And you don't have to take AI for what it is. I mean, you can always change it. You can always try different things and see what the best result for you is. And so I believe I went with the educational one. Let's see. Let's go back to let's see, tips. And which one did I actually use? And I believe it is the audience is facing a challenge. Okay, yeah, that's the basic blogging prompt. And so what I did was I rewrote the instructions. So basically I said, rewrite the article according to these instructions. And we dropped in one of the humanizing prompts. And this is the output it gave me. And this is the output that we actually used in our blog. And I'll actually show you that right now. So this is the final finished blog. This was posted about a month ago. And so this is really what it has. You put your time and energy into building a small business website. You've launched it, but it may even be shared a link with some friends, but you search it on Google and nothing. And that actually sounds pretty human. That's probably something that's happened to almost all of you. If you've ever published something on a website, posted something on a website, built your own website and say, hey, I'm not getting squat. And so you need to understand how that will come across to a reader. And so we want the reader to be invested. And so a lot of this stuff is about, if I were reading this as a reader, how would that make me feel? I would be invested. That would make me feel like I want to read this. So once we put all this stuff together, we can make changes, we can update things, and we can also understand how many keywords it has, what the word count is. Word count tends to be anywhere between 1,000 to 1,200 words, which is really good for SEO. But it's up to you. If you don't write like that, or if you have more of a personal blog, you can make things a little shorter. If you have more of a professional blog, like a white paper or something like that, you can make it a little bit longer. And so you can use these in different ways, and you can always change this stuff to meet your needs. So we already have our finished blog post. Let's say we take this and we're finished. This sounds good to us. We like it, and we want to move forward. So the next thing would be to optimize. Now, creating a blog post is not just the writing part of it. We need to make it so that Google likes it. Because we need to we're not only writing for Google with all the keywords, and we're not just writing for the people because they like it. We need to go both. And that intersection is going to be the optimizing part. We want to write for people who like it, so they give us, page views and things like that. But we also want to write it for Google so that they actually serve it up to the people that we need to. And so the first thing we need to look at is going to be titles. Now, titles are the first thing that people see in Google. And actually, let's see, SEO for small business. So if I were to search for something, the title, SEO Starter Guide, this is the title of that. This is the title of that blog post. SEO for small businesses, everything you need to know. So I would want to look at this and say, hey, this is something that I would want to read. And so we need to make sure that we understand what titles are, how titles work and how they are viewed on Google. And so most titles are going to be like 60 characters, which is a good limit to have. And you don't want to just have AI create a title for you. You may want to have specific options. So let's go to ChatGPT. Let's make a new chat. And we have let's get our prompts here. So I have prompts for that, for SEO and optimizing. So let's go to titles. I usually like to do meta descriptions before titles because I'm still using the keyword, but it doesn't really matter. Let's go ChatGPT here. And so we'll do 10, 10 suggestions for SEO for small business websites. So I'm telling it, give me 10 suggestions for this keyword and keep it under 60 characters so that it would work good on Google. And so these are all the different options it gives me. You can tell ChatGPT, hey, I like this one, do more like that. And so, let's see. I like option, let's just say, I like option 1. Give me suggestions like that. So it gives me more suggestions like that. So I can choose which ones and I can refine it as much as possible till something that I like. And what I ended up liking was unlock growth, actionable SEO for small business. That's what I picked, and that's what we're going with. So then the next thing is going to be the sneak peek. It's also known as the meta description. And so the meta description is the little description that you'll see on Google. And this is a sneak peek of what the blog post is going to be about. So let's go back to, let's go to Google. We'll go back to Google. And if you notice right here, this right here, where it says, where it says complete Google My Business profile fully, select the right service areas. This meta description wasn't done very well. You can tell. Even this one, how to improve your small business, and it gives you, different bullet points. Make a quality website, set up Google Analytics, set up a Google business profile. Again, the meta description is not done very well. And so these are things that you don't do. And so when you want to make a really good meta description, don't do that. So let's go to another prompt right here, and we're going to make a meta description based on the blog post that we already did. And so we'll go back, we'll go SEO tips here. And what did I actually do? Did I actually make a meta description? I did not. Okay, so then we'll do that. So write an SEO optimized meta description, and that's the goal. That's what we want to do. To the article that's no longer than 150 characters. Really simple, doesn't have to be rocket science, doesn't have to be super long, very simple. And this is the meta description. This is something that the first person who would see it would be like, hey, I want to read that. It says, struggling to get found on Google? Yes, I am. Learn how on-page SEO tips to boost visibility, attract more customers to get to your small business website. That sounds like something that I would want to read. So that's good. So next thing we need to do is we need to come up with some visuals. We have a meta description, we'll paste that somewhere. We have our title, we'll put it at the top. Next thing we need to do is visuals. So there are different places that you can grab some visuals. We can use ChatGPT, like I did right here, about this article. And this is what I used. You can use Canva as well if you want to use a real picture or like a stock picture, and then put some kind of chyron, which is what I did here. So I took that picture and put a little title so they can see what it is. You can do a bunch of other types of pictures. It's not necessarily something that's like super crazy. You don't have to do that. You can use other tools like Recraft. Let's see. Recraft right here. This is another one where you can create a project, and you basically will put in a prompt for an illustration you want it to generate, and it'll generate it for you. If you're doing something like diagrams or more like technical illustrations or something that you want to visually talk about, you can do that here with Napkin. Napkin AI is another AI program that's free that you can do. This one is a little bit more interesting because this one is what I use for illustrations for concepts that are a little bit hard to get around. So like we did a blog post on Succession last week on how to set up your business to pass it on to somebody, sell it to somebody, figuring out all that stuff. This is what what I wrote about. And so it talks about the bricks and all of these things. Well, I don't really know what the bricks look like or how to actually visualize what you're talking about. So then I went to Napkin and it created this visual for me. You can always change the visuals and edit them into different things. So I can export it or I can change it up into something different. I don't know if I can do that right now. No, I can't do that because that's exported already. But, oops, too big. But you can always change them. You can add them to different things, and you can always refine it. Again, everything's about refining. We're not just using AI just to make stuff. We're refining always. That's basically what my job is mostly, is to refine it, edit, refine, edit until I get to something that's actually usable. That's really good. But let's go back to our slides. There we go. And we already showed you what the different AI programs that you can use. Recraft, ChatGPT, Gemini is a good one if you want to create some visuals. Again, Napkin, you can use Unsplash if you don't want to create things. You can just use stock video or stock pictures. You can use Canva if you want to build your own pictures. So now that we have pictures, we have optimization, we've already created all of this stuff, we have the final draft. Now it's time for promotion. We need to get the word out. And so the first thing we can do is what they call the rush method. This is usually for advertising, but I've also adapted it and used AI to adjust it for getting the framework for social media post. And what rush means, if you were curious, is a relevant hook, a unique angle, which is part of how we're actually blogging, a simple message, so a simple solution, and then what the CTA or call to action is. Should they read it? Should they watch it? How is the content? And then give them a reason why they should click. So for most of our content that we create it for LinkedIn and Facebook. Now, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to social media, so we may have to create the blog post or the images or both to fit specific audiences on each platform. So for Facebook, it could be a little bit more on our blog, and for Facebook, it can be a little bit more laid back or interesting. For LinkedIn, it could be a little bit more buttoned up and professional. It really just depends on who your audience is, and you can engage, you can change it for both. And then again, the best part of all of this stuff is you can have AI do this for you. And the way I've created the prompts for this specifically is going to be for LinkedIn and Facebook. And I've crafted them specifically to make it a little bit more interesting so that people will actually read it. You can always change it for your kind of voice and your audience, but for the most part, it's set up to be exactly what we need, or at least what we need for as the SBDC. So let's go back to our prompts. Again, in article images, we have Canva, Napkin, Recraft, ChatGPT. You can go to all of these and you can check out to see what images you can have. And you should probably have an image for every 350 words, just so you know. But when it comes to promotion, prompt 10 is going to be social media. So this is a simple social media. It's really short, and I'll show you what it looks like. Simple for Facebook, a little bit more for LinkedIn, because that's just kind of how the platforms work. I've done a lot of research behind these. But we did talk about Rush. So Rush is a little bit more involved, and it's a little bit more formatting. And it also gives you some examples to make it easier for like the emojis, as the cool kids say. But then it also gives you some formatting: succinct, conversational, action-driven, no fluff. So let's go back to ChatGPT. And so I did put in a prompt for that specifically, how to do the Rush stuff, and this is what it looks like. And so it gives me blog post details. This is the background, what it's pulling from. But this is the actual post. So can't find your site on Google? Here's how to fix it. We'll put in the link and the SEO. Easy peasy. No fluff, no, nothing too crazy. LinkedIn post. So, gives me the emojis. It has the question marks. I kind of don't like them, so I don't put them in. I should probably change that. Most small business owners miss on-page SEO, and that's the problem. Here's the solution. Here's a practical guide to get it fixed. You can put in the link for that, and then some hashtags to get it found. Easy peasy. Doesn't have to be super crazy. Doesn't have to be rocket science. And also, you can always adapt it to other things, like Twitter posts or X posts, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. You can always change it and adapt it to what platforms you're using. You just need to make sure that those people are going to be there so that they can see it. So that's pretty much it. We've already promoted it on social media, and we've already are getting eyeballs on it. The last thing that we can do, which is more of a bonus tip, is called repurposing. And this is a really advanced way of getting your content out there. And so with repurposing, you can change one piece of content to many pieces of content. And so where you're not reinventing the wheel and changing it and doing it all the time. And so what we want to do is we want to work with the power of one. What that means is that we are going from one specific piece of content and then we're changing it into other things. So specifically, we do blog posts. We start out with blog posts and then we change it into other things. Well, what kinds of things can we change it into? Well, we can go from a blog post to a video. How do I do that? Well, you can you can film it yourself using the blog post and changing it into a script. That's perfectly fine. It is going to be a little bit more work if you have to, pull the camera out and, do it like this and just read from the script and do all that stuff. Or if you have NotebookLM, we can change it into a video here, which is actually what I did. So if we have this video here, we can go back and we can play and see what happens.
All right, let's talk about something I know is on a lot of your minds. You've poured your heart and soul into building a beautiful website for your small
And
business.
so
You
we have
finally hit
this
that publish
here,
button, and then
and we
there's
can
a
actually
really
fast
clear
forward,
reason for this,
and
and even
it
better,
answers
how in the
questions.
world do
It
you
has
start with
specific
all
sections
this?
based on the
Well,
blog
okay,
post,
so once you've got your
and
list of keywords,
so
what's
on and
next?
so forth.
The
And we
next
can
step is to.
also
We talked about the
do all
why
that stuff.
and the how.
And at the very end, we have our extra, little things that go along with Google. And then I also started out with our title card. And so you can make those little changes and make it better. So that's what it looks like. I'll put that into the notes so you can see it. But gives you all of those things. And it's an 8-minute video. And I also changed it into You can also change it into a podcast. Now, I don't have a podcast for this one specifically, but we do have one for this on the succession building. So,
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really common myth for business owners.
Yeah, this idea that succession planning is just this cliff you jump off at the very end.
Right, like a desperate last minute thing. It's scary.
so that's the next thing that we can do is change it from either a video or a podcast. And now you've created two kinds of content from one blog post that you created in about an hour. And this stuff will take, maybe 10 to 15 minutes to make based on, what is it, NotebookLM, and then it changes it into something, but you're not doing anything. It's doing that in the background. You're really not doing much of anything unless you're going to be editing it into something else. But then the other thing for getting the word out is putting it in other places. So I mentioned social media, but you can put it into an email and send it out to your audience, to your email list. So that's what we did with this. This is the actual, let's pull that up. This is the actual email that was sent out for the blog post. And it has the meta description, or a little bit more of a meta description. You can read the guide, or you can watch the video, or you can listen to the podcast. All of these different ways of making this content as easy as possible for people to consume so that they know more about you and that you're answering their questions. But that's pretty much it for all of this. It's a lot of information. Like I said, I will give you the prompt workflow. It has links to a lot of things besides just the prompts on how to build all this stuff, but it also has links to where I found a lot of the information. And if you do need to sign up for specific AIs, you can do that with links to those tools. But you probably have some questions, which is okay, because it was a lot of information, and I actually don't blame you for having questions. But if you do need those questions asked or answered, you can give us a call, 909-448-1567, and you can set up an appointment to meet with somebody, to talk to somebody one-on-one, either virtually, via Zoom or in person, and get help with actually start building your blog posts or building your visibility online. If you're watching this on Zoom, you're already a client, don't worry. All you need to do is give us a call after this workshop is done, and then I'll answer it. We'll schedule you an appointment as soon as possible so you can talk with somebody and get this going. If you're watching this on Zoom, or not on Zoom, on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, basically anywhere that isn't Zoom, you can actually sign up as a client if you're not already at lavernesbdc.org /new client. You can get signed up. Just let us know a little bit about what your business does and what kind of help you need with, and we can give you a call to schedule that appointment as soon as possible with any one of our consultants and advisors to help you with your business. We don't just do marketing. We can do starting a business, financing, marketing, management, anything that you need. If you're a small business owner, we can get you the help you need. If you just either sign up as a client or reach out to us by phone, we can get you set up. But that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching. Happy blogging, and we will see you in the next workshop. Thank you very much and have a nice day.